All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode. And today we are going to talk about the idea of content and versus context and why it's really important to understand these two topics and these two concepts because it really is going to determine how we are able to integrate and apply tools in our life because we need to apply them from the right context, especially if we're dealing with content that we're very sensitive to. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Codde. I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of AAA Response. If you're looking for help on your journey to recovery, I have some links down in the notes to get you started and some helpful resources, as well as you can head over to Restored Minds, check out our TBC program, my book, other resources available for you, and my coaching as well. So let's go ahead and dive into the show. So with the idea of content versus context, it's very important that we understand that content lives within context. So when we talk about, let's say intrusive thoughts, right? Well, let's talk what it means to take something out of context first. So most people have heard or been experienced something where you said something, it was taken out of context and then totally misunderstood and misrepresented when it was presented to someone else. So for instance, if I said something to the effect of, I heard a person yell at Starbucks, I want to rob the bank next door. Well, someone could take this, just that part of the sentence where I said, I want to rob the bank next door, and say, Matt said, I want to rob the bank next door. Completely leaving the first part of the sentence out where I said that I heard someone say and then quoted them, right? But it literally, the truth is, when you take it out of context, that I actually did say those words in that order, right? But maybe with a certain emotional tone. But if we remove them out of the context of the greater picture, it's a completely false representation for what was really said. Okay? So truth exists in a certain context. Okay? If I focus on just the second half of the sentence, it is quote unquote true that I said that. But if we broaden the context out to what I was really saying, that's not at all the intentionality. Therefore, it wasn't true that that's what I said. I was saying someone quoted that, right? So content exists within context. Okay. Now, why is this important? Because when we talk about intrusive thoughts and we're talking about OCD and anxiety and how we're engaging with the mind itself, when the mind produces an intrusive thought and you're disengaging with the thought or you're applying certain techniques to, again, not get involved, not ruminate, not analyze, not engage any compulsions, well, the reason we're doing that is because we are operating from the broader context of OCD and anxiety and intervening in that, as opposed to trying to stop the content itself. Now, this is important because if you are trying to solve a content problem, meaning what your mind is saying, and assuming that the content is wrong, well, it's wrong in certain context, right? But not in the context of OCD and anxiety. So, for instance, if someone really is wanting to has a thought about harming themselves or someone else and really wants to do that, well, in the context of the true desire to act on those thoughts, that person, there needs to be a significant intervention happened, right? Because they're a literal threat. In the context of OCD and anxiety, where these thoughts are generated in a intrusive manner and really within the energy of fear, the reason we handle them differently is because the content is in a totally different context. And if you're taking content in the wrong context, you're going to completely, mishandle the situation. This is how when someone goes to the hospital who's dealing with a significant OCD and anxiety experience and says, I'm having these thoughts about XYZ, and the person doesn't and let's say the, social worker or the doctor or the nurse or whoever's at the hospital that's evaluating them takes the thoughts out of context of OCD and anxiety and just takes the content seriously, well, they're likely to do something that's actually going to be way more damaging than actually getting the person help, right? This is so important because content has to exist within a certain context, and we have to understand the context in which we're doing something. ERP is effective because we're dealing with the energy of fear. And when we release the fear around a situation, or when we really allow the fear to process through our body, our context of the entire situation changes. Okay, so the way we know something's an intrusive thought is within the context of OCD and anxiety, and the tools that we're applying are not on the content, they're within the context of OCD and anxiety. And if you get that, it means everything, and will potentially change the entire trajectory of your recovery, because if you're operating from trying to control content, ignoring the idea that this is OCD and anxiety in the context, you're never going to be successful, because you're just going to be battling content and doing compulsions and feeding the loop. So if you're battling and fighting the content of your mind, especially the intrusive thoughts that are replaying again and again and again, and you're engaging in the same repetitive compulsions again and again and again, and you've been doing this for a while, what needs to happen is you need to broaden the context of what we're actually aiming to solve, meaning the whole loop itself, and work at it from that level. Because right and wrong largely depends on context. I know that's like, it's wild to think about, but you can take many different acts, and in certain contexts they can be right, in certain contexts they can be wrong. Is it wrong, for a 27-year-old to date a 14-year-old? Well, yeah, that's illegal, right? Is it wrong for a 14-year-old to date a 14-year-old, right? No, right? That's age appropriate. So the act of dating a 14-year-old is dependent upon a context of who the other person is, right? The broader picture. You can't just say dating someone that's 14 is wrong, because it depends on the context. Same thing. We can take it even higher. Is killing another person wrong? Well, in the context of just walking up the street and targeting someone, yeah, absolutely, right? Murder, manslaughter, right? And we have certain degrees in which that happens. Someone is intruding into your house trying to harm you, and you take their life. It's, is that wrong in that time when you're defending yourself? And, expanded into the idea of war. We agree in certain terms of war that it's okay to kill one another, and you don't get prosecuted and put in jail for that. Right? There are crimes within war, and so that's another context. But my point is you have to understand context before you evaluate the content. And when you understand OCD and anxiety in the correct context, and you understand intrusive thought as content in that context, then how you respond to the content is very different, because we're operating from the broader context of OCD and anxiety. I hope that makes sense, and I really hope I'm communicating that clearly, because that will, if you understand context, the tools will be much easier for you to apply. So when you're implementing the AAA response, let's say, you have to do it within the context of what we're really doing. So with that said, I hope that was helpful. I hope this was beneficial for you, and I hope you have a great week and a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.